Hello and good morning to everybody. My name is Gwen Gringheis. I am the Assistant Registrar for Recruitment at the John H. Daniels Faculty of Landscape Architecture and Design, and I am very pleased that you have decided to join us this morning. And so I will be passing it over very shortly to Professor Vivian Lee to deliver a presentation about the Master of Architecture program. But I did just want to go through a few housekeeping items with you in advance. And so we will start with an information session, and that includes a presentation, after which we will be able to answer your questions. And so if you have any questions during the presentation, I encourage you to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you will be able to enter your questions there. So after the presentation, I will moderate those questions for you. And so without further ado, I will pass it over to Professor Vivian Lee.
Thanks, Gwendolyn. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, depending where you're joining us from. My name is Vivian Lee, and I am the director of the Masters of Architecture program. I also teach at the school. So I'll just run through a little bit about our curriculum, which is mostly my expertise. And depending what your questions maybe will direct you to the right parties to help answer those. I hope you can see a screen right now where I want to just kind of give you an overview. For those of you that are not familiar with the University of Toronto, St. George's campus, Daniels is located at the southwest edge of that. It's an exciting school to be a part of because Daniels is a part of a larger network. And as you are available to take electives, you will be able to reach out to a number of other programs and schools across our campus. And if you're new to Toronto, it's exciting to be here right now, especially with World Series going, and hopefully that'll be the case next year as well. So you'll see this is a new, well, this photo is actually when it was still under construction. The building itself has been really inspirational to be in and to work from. It's an old seminary on one side, and NADA, the office of Nader Tarani, has designed a new half to that. And the background that's here is our studio, and I hope you will be able to join us for the open house and visit our building. So the number one question, I'm kind of just going to dive right into the curriculum because that's kind of the biggest question that I do get. People ask me often, what is the difference between MArch and MArch AP, which is MArch Advanced Placement, and then even sometimes the MArch Post-Professional Program. So let me just kind of give you an overview. The Masters of Architecture program is an accredited program, which means that it has a curriculum that is oversight by the CACB, which is the Canadian Architectural Registration Board, that makes sure that all of you, when you do graduate from this program, can begin to log your hours and eventually test for your architecture license. So quite a bit of it is standardized in terms of content across the Canadian schools, and then some aspects of it are different. So the 3-year program is especially for students who come from a I would say, bachelor's of architecture or non-specific bachelor's of science in architecture type program. So if from a Canadian context, if you've gone to Waterloo or TMU, you are candidates for the advanced placement program. But if you are a Daniels student, so our own undergraduate program, you will be going through a 3-year program. This is also true for anybody who's coming from any other discipline. And in fact, every year we really welcome a good percentage of our students to be from any number of things. We have biochemistry students, we have pre-med students, we have engineers, computer science students that come with no background in architecture whatsoever, and we can easily catch them up with a little more August courses to perform and actually often be quite amazing by the thesis year because of the interdisciplinary aspects that these students weave together in their third year. So in this 3-year curriculum, the last 2 years are the same for advanced placement students and for the normal MARC students. So imagine that we are expecting a 70-person class coming in for their first year, and then another 30 students joining that 70 in the second and third year. And I just want to say that, as an overview, you can apply for advanced placement. And, I would check that box to say that you would be willing to consider a 3-year program if you are willing to consider a 3-year program, because 30 students is actually incredibly competitive. So it's not just that if you are eligible for advanced placement that you get the spot. It's one of our most competitive programs, actually. And we are in the midst of talking about maybe opening up a few more spots there. But if you don't get in, it's because it is incredibly competitive. And then if you are from abroad with a degree that you're not sure of, we actually go through a pretty rigorous eligibility form and check to see if you are even eligible to be considered for the advanced placement program. So that's the overview of what to apply for. You can see for the first 2 years, and I'll show you some work from the studios, they're pretty tight and in step with your cohort. So studios 1, 2, 3, 4, I'll elaborate a little bit more. But if you're new to architecture, you'll be starting your studies August 1st, usually, with a skills workshop and just getting you acquainted with kind of some of the basic design thinking and design oriented representation, software, things of that nature. For everybody, there will be class does start mid-August as part of the ways in which we're able to fit all of the accreditation and also kind of thesis work towards the end. So you do have visual communications that starts middle of August. And then if you are part of the advanced placement group, you do also come in middle of August for site engineering. You can see all of the kind of pink and mustard colors are design technology, or well, maybe I'll back up. Design technology 1 and 2 mostly deal with softwares and fabrication techniques that architects use today. Everything from, Rhino, Grasshopper, Python, 3D printing, down to actually in design technology 2, they're mostly about simulation of, daylighting, airflows, energy. So architects actually use software both performatively and in formal investigations, and you kind of investigate the range of those. Structures 1 and 2 are integrally linked, one to the next. And then there's a sequence of 4 building science courses with site engineering. These are the range of building science, construction, engineering, envelope studies that happen throughout. And in this final 4th semester, which is comprehensive studio, both the structures 2 and the building science 4 are collapsed into joint assignments. So you're basically working on one giant kind of investigation that's integrated together. On the history theory front, there's historical perspectives 1 and 2. Research methods gets you to start thinking about, well, first of all of the ways in which architects research, but also to begin thinking about formulating a thesis of your own and what that might be. Of the 4 electives that you have left to choose, one of them must be in history theory as well. And that could be not just stuck in winter term 4, but it could be in your 3rd year, anytime you want to do that. And we have an incredibly robust history theory elective range to choose from because of the concurrent PhD program at our school, where you are able to be in these small size seminars and among PhD students, especially for history theory class, and sometimes even building science courses. Finally, this last year is very much a kind of open year compared to the first 2 years, where yes, you have professional practice, which will be the only core course really. And we have, lectures almost every week, maybe every other week, where we're trying to get you acquainted with the profession, from cost estimation to spec writing to city planners. And so there's a lot of exciting, almost like I think of it as, a, a forum where all of the city of Toronto, especially practitioners, come and engage with the students. You are able to take an option studio, which is across all 3 programs. So that's, you can choose from the landscape architecture option studio or the urban design option studios. It's one way in which you're both interdisciplinary with students and with architecture or, architecture allied professors. We invite people from across the world actually to join this, and also our own esteemed researchers. It is a way, again, to see how somebody else is conducting research or methodologies of practice. This all kind of gears you up to do your final design studio, which is thesis studio. So you do have a concurrent thesis seminar that you ballot for with one advisor. So this is more of a 3-hour seminar where you start to prepare readings, start to figure out what it is, kind of the background and the context of your research, and then you perform and actually design that research in your final semester. So I'll keep going and just show you imagery, but just to say that there's a huge range of electives that you can take, and there's a link that Alex or Gwendolyn can throw in there where you can look at everything that is currently on offer, and that changes year to year. I did want to also mention the post-professional Masters of Architecture program. I am officially not the director of this program. That would be Mason White. But there is an option if you are already have gotten a Master's of Architecture degree or a professionalized architecture degree, and what you really want to do is come back and get engaged and specialize in new technologies, new ways of thinking about whatever that might be, AI, fabrication. It's kind of up to you to define, and you're able to do a thesis and work with our faculty. And this is a 1-year program, but you must be already a professional. You're holding a professional degree in architecture. And then what we offer you in the post-professional degree is actually a non-accredited degree. I just want to show you some of the work from the studio. They change often year to year, but the ideas and the core curriculum, this has actually been updated since I've been director, so 5 years ago, and fairly recent curriculum that we're still working on every year. But the first year is about form making. You're trying to understand ways in which architects organize space. You're going to be thrown a lot of program, a lot of thinking about systems, but there are formal ways in which architects begin to organize space. in a way that's clear for use, but also exciting as spatial propositions. And so we work through ideas of poche, how, inhabitable poches, thinking through grids, ways that we organize and plan and think through, the dimensions of a body walking through a stair, tight compressive spaces versus expansive spaces. And so these are short assignments that really deal with spatial organization before you get into your second semester. The second semester studio mostly deals with issues of site and materiality. Here we are thinking about the lens of site in ways that are not just kind of colonial settler lens, but site actually has much deeper meanings, especially to our indigenous peoples. And there are ways in which we think about site that is broader and try to bring in indigenous concepts, both to site and to material use. And so students work on a project that's in the landscape, dealing with topography, dealing with ecology and the kind of cycles of time and nature. And then working through materials while, building in these ecological sites. What are responsible materials? What are the materials that are locally sourced? But from there, how do you manipulate and think through material properties to invent and design something maybe novel, inspired by materials? So these have been projects that deal with that. And it's the beginnings of you having now had some building science to be able to think through materials into a constructible system, which we also emphasize in this studio. The third studio, we now are in Toronto, and it is called an integrated urbanism studio. It's great, we found, for people coming in as advanced placement who are new to the city. And here we're really studying something about the greater Toronto area. This year, it has to do with housing specifically. There's been new codes that are allowing for major avenues to have 6-story apartment buildings. What are the implications of that alongside its issues of landscape? So this is a course where the landscape students are doing the same exact sites. So are the urban design students. So everybody comes together to work on the same site, which is really mimicking how it works in practice. Architects do not actually design alone. We design with many other disciplines, and we look through their lens, our lens, have these knowledge exchanges in order to inform our design decisions. So here students are learning GIS, which is geospatial data, about demographics, about walkability, infrastructure, trying to understand floodplains, all of these things at the same time, like where are the main bike lanes, but where are all the sewage outfalls? Those are understanding the collapse of systems and how to design at the scale, also site related, but urban site, with data information. And so you can see the scale of this is kind of zoomed out, where you're really understanding how to master plan to some degree, but also in this year, actually, we're getting down into the housing as a system to think about issues of affordability, issues of growth and densification, and the missing middle in Toronto. Here, you're working with a lot of policy, and for final reviews, we actually often get just city planners coming in, current practicing professionals, people who are working on these same topics, and they're always very exciting and fruitful conversations. In the final comprehensive studio, if you're shopping around for schools, I think we all have a comprehensive studio. This is the place where you're integrating all of your building science knowledge, that's structural systems, mechanical systems, envelope design, all into a building. At our school, we also mandate that you consider what it means to build in a low carbon environment. And so there's all these reports and analysis that we ask you to do, thinking about the net energy use of your building, which is really the only way to build going forward. This is a balloted studio as well. So prominent faculty members who practice right now, alongside, you know, we invite also, you know, partners of large firms in Toronto, practitioners in Toronto to come run, each running a section. So we think of it as almost a competition in real life. There's going to be a brief, there's going to be a project, and each studio has its own lens based on the instructor and what their expertise is on how they want to structure their particular section. The deliverables are completely the same across the board, and you choose and ballot for which instructor you want to work with. Here you can see the kind of reports and analysis that we expect students to perform in order to understand issues of daylighting, issues of energy loss, and even ways that materials can contribute to the overall sustainable maintenance of the building. This is a paired project, and you know, I think it's one of our most exciting projects in terms of output and also robust conversations with practitioners in studio. And then here, I just want to show you what the other courses, you know, alongside comprehensive is asking you to deliver. So whole life cycle carbon emissions estimates, things of this nature are in sync, and that fourth term is synced up across building science and studio class. Finally, option studio. Again, I'll just have Alex or Gwen drop in a link of where you can find the current option studios. Our current Gary chair is Yusuke Obuski, who is from University of Tokyo and works with, I mean, he was the Venice Biennale Golden Lions winner for some of his amazing digital fabrication projects, digital fabrication with humor, I would say, and working on what it means when there's error in fabrication. But we invite a range of guest professors to teach from abroad, and also our own faculty. And so this is just from last year, where, you know, Florian and Jing from So Ill came as the Gary chair. We always have a Gary chair, which is our esteemed position. And you can see also our own faculty teaching their own research or their own practice, things that they've been working on. So incredibly up-to-date thinking about the built environment, either in the landscape studios or the urban design studios. And we try to range through the topics. So Shane and Tura were teaching community-driven design, versus Nayun was teaching about the DMZ zone in Korea. And in fact, this is where travel does happen, where students travel during reading week. You know, this year, I think they're going to Zanzibar, Japan, LA, just to name a few. I can't remember. Oh, and London, the UK. And then in that same website, you will begin to see electives. So you can take electives across all of University of Toronto. But for our school, there's classes in forestry and visual studies and landscape and urban design, etc. And I definitely know of our own students going to study real estate or School of Cities and or film, branching out into other schools like Innis and School of Information to craft and curate their own final year, which is really the 1 year where you kind of are setting together your own expertise towards your own design work. Last but not least, you also ballot for this year-long thesis seminar and studio. So the seminars are 3-hour seminars, and they're with our own faculty advisors. So there's very topic specific, like Karen Kubi or Maria Yablina are specifically working with digital fabrication, or Karen is specifically working on housing. But that's their own research expertise, and you ballot for your advisor essentially, formulate what you might be working on within their expertise, and then that transitions into a studio, which is the final semester of your time here at Daniels. So please go and browse through all of these, because every year it changes. But we do try to make sure that certain themes are always alive, like health and architecture, digital fabrication, housing, etc., so that there are a few constant themes every year. That concludes my part of the presentation. And I want to open up the latter half of this Q&A session for actual questions.
Thank you so much, Vivian. So for everybody who is joining us, please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A at the bottom. For anybody who is watching this recording, I would encourage you to send us an email at futurestudents@daniels.utoronto.ca, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions there.